Recording is Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, apologies about the late start. I was trying to get to my computer. I had some technical difficulties. All right. What's this again? All right, so what were we doing last night? Just remind me what we covered last night. Hello. What did we do last class? Not last night, but the last class. Yes, people, talk to me. What did we do in the last class? Why are you so silent?
Right, sir. So for the last class, most of it we were talking about the incidents and the overall things that's happening in the world. And then you did a recap of what you did the class before. So that's basically what we did.
That was about how writers organize the essay using contrasting.
Right. Thank you, because I know I did more than just talk about the incident. Right. So we discussed organizational strategies, right?
Sir, we were discussing that.
And I think I shared a few. Can you remind me what are some of the organizational strategies?
Analogy. We were looking at
analogy. Yes.
Analogy, sir.
Different types of definition.
We looked at the different types of definition.
Cause and effect.
We looked at what else?
Examples, sir. Like I think you were telling us a different type of examples. I think you included that for last class.
Right. So we looked at the different. Can anybody remind me what are the different types of examples?
We have like scientific, the technical.
So we have scientific, technical. Anything else?
Sir, we have specific. We did illustration. Exemplification.
Yes.
Right. And we did hypothetical.
Right. Hypothetical examples.
Right.
Okay. Let me just see if. All right. So let me just remind you about some of those, and then we get into looking at doing an example, because now all right, where would I have saved it? In this file. Here. Module 1. These are rhetorical devices. No, this is not that. So outside of those, are there any other language strategies that we mentioned? Language techniques. Anything else we mentioned? Can you go through the list? I shared something in the WhatsApp group and I'm not hearing persons mentioning those things. Can you just mention those things for me? What are some of the other language strategies that I mentioned?
Sir,
Cause and
classification.
effect.
We said, say that again.
Classification.
Classification, yes.
Cause and effect.
Yes. All right, so the others that I want us to make mention in terms of what is called discourse analysis is for example, writer's main idea, and I want you to make note of these things, so you need to write them down. Writer's main idea.
Yes, I think you mentioned something about that. I think you had said purpose, audience,
Right, purpose,
tone,
what? Exactly.
register, and diction.
Right. Okay, all right, so we mentioned those. I'm trying to find a lecture that explains it in making it very easy for you guys to understand. No matter where I put it. All right, let's go back here. All right, so the first one I'm going to discuss is the writer's main idea. And as I said before, you might need to write. I'm trying to locate the lecture, but you might need to write. So the writer's main idea is who or what a piece of discourse is about. A writer's main idea is who or what a piece of discourse is about. In other words, who is this thing about, or what is this thing about? It begins with the that clause. It begins with a that clause. It begins with a that clause. For example, the writer's main idea is that, or you can say the writer's main point is that. Everybody has that?
Yes, sir.
The other thing is the writer's purpose. Right, I finally find what I'm looking for. The other thing is the writer's purpose. And the purpose is twofold. One is the purpose answers why, or why this was written, or why was this written. And two, what the writer hopes to accomplish.
So can you repeat please?
So so the purpose is twofold. One is the why it was written, and two, what the writer hopes to accomplish. A writer's purpose begins with a to clause. A writer's purpose begins with a to clause. For example, the writer's purpose is to. Have that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Didn't All right, so let's get into the lecture now, because this is really what your mid-semester will be. I'm going to give you on discourse analysis. All right, so one of the important things in academic writing is to make sense of discourse modes, is to make sense of sources, because in what you're going to do is to really analyze the sources that you're going to integrate into your paper. So it's called discourse analysis, and the word analysis means to break things down into smaller parts to assist people to understand or to get a sense of what it is about. All right, so good writers are good readers. Very important to know that. So what you're really doing is evaluating texts, and the broad term we're using is discourse. So types of reading. So types of reading purposes or processes, skimming. And so when you get like, you're searching for information, or you have a book or you have a journal article, you might scan, which means to locate specific pieces of information. For example, you might just need a definition, need a name, the date, the year of publication, things like that. Skimming now is when you click, you run your eyes over text to get the gist. In other words, you're just reading to get the gist of the paper, probably just to see if it makes sense to, if it is it relevant to your broad topic, or can be used as a piece of evidence. The close/intensive reading now is to extract specific information and to understand the content, which is part of what is called discourse analysis. The extensive reading now is usually for enjoyment, where you might read various novels. Is there anybody, for example, I am a big fan of Dan Brown. Dan Brown writes mostly about, because he was an attorney, so most of his books are about like crimes or court proceedings. So you have, for example, the Runaway Jury, the Rainmaker, and then other than Dan Brown, you have John Grisham. And John Grisham, I'm sure you have heard about the book, the Da Vinci Code. Have you ever heard about the book Da Vinci Code?
Sir?
The Da Vinci Code. There's a movie, and the movie is actually, right, the movie is actually based on the book, and I remember reading the book years ago. I don't get a chance to read as much as read like novels or those kinds of books anymore because of the nature of my work. I'm constantly reading for work, so I don't get a chance to sit down and enjoy these books. Like before, I remember reading another one when I was teaching at a particular high school. A student loaned me a book called The Sky is Falling, and it was an autobiography. I read, there's a book that I would ask you to read in your, it's called The Color of Water. That book helped me to look at race in America very different. It was actually loaned to me by a white woman when I went on the work and travel program in 2006. So you should read books. So extensive reading is, you're reading for fun, for enjoyment. Critical reading now is partly, which is what we expect of you, sensing writers' intention, bias, purpose, effectiveness of language strategies. Sometimes they're called rhetorical strategies. And then proofreading now, not about decoding meaning, but in terms of checking for punctuation, grammar, and all of that. All right, so there are various purposes why persons read. So for the purposes of your mid-semester exam, you are going to be given a piece of discourse, and you're going to analyze it, identifying the writer's purpose, the writer's main idea, and 3 organizational strategies, and commenting on things like tone and diction and stuff like that. And we're going to do some of that between today in this class and going over into the following class. We're going to look at sample papers of analysis, and then you're going to be given it as a part of your mid-semester. And it will help you in terms of when you now have to go and interrogate sources. It will give you a better understanding of how to really critically analyze sources and later integrate them. right, give me one sec, because we're up for accreditation. These persons, I don't know if they're reading these documents correctly, because I'm sure it says Christian worldview. Right, the word Christian is there. These are just some quotes. Let me see what this man says. Reading, writing connections. Yes. All right, let me just go through some of this. All right, so here are some what I call pithy zingers relating to reading. The first one, I divide all readers into two classes: those who read to remember and those who read to forget. All right. And you do have those persons who read to remember, and you do have those persons who read to forget. Nothing is worth reading that does not require an alert mind. In other words, critical reading is important, and to read without reflecting is like eating without digesting. So whatever you read, you reflect on it. And even for me, even in terms of movies, I don't watch movies unless I'm going to genuinely learn something from it. Last night, I watched Julia Roberts' Sam is Back on Netflix, and it's really about a mother whose son struggles with addiction, and he suddenly turns up at their house during the Christmas holiday, and he's still struggling as a drug addict, and in the end, she ended up saving his life because he ended up overdosing. So I try to read books that give me some sense of opportunity to learn, and it's the same thing when I'm watching movies. So reading, like writing, fosters learning and communication of information. So oftentimes, and I'm not sure if your acceptance letter said it, but when I was at UA, and I think UA still says it in their acceptance letter, you're reading for your degree. They'll tell you that specifically, that you're reading for your degree. So you have to devote a lot of time to actually reading the information, or reading information, consulting textbooks. You're going to read until your hands, until you are like, you read no more. All right. Reading and writing, they are very intertwined. In order for you to write, you must read. So when you consult the sources and they give you some sense of what the topic is about, then you're able to write. Strong writers and tendency. All right, I'm not going to get into all of this because I want to, let me put this thing at the bottom because I can't read what is at the top. So definition of reading, the process of obtaining and constructing meaning from a word or a cluster of words. Is this how you would define reading, or would you define it otherwise? It's a question and it's not rhetorical. Hello? Would you define reading this way, people?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I would have probably left out constructing. I would have said obtaining meaning from words. I wouldn't have probably put constructing in there, honestly.
Because why would you not put the word constructing in it?
Because when I think about reading, I think about reading to get knowledge. But now when I look at this, in order to get information or to get knowledge, sometimes you have to do a bit of construction. So prior to hearing all that you have been describing, I would not have ascribed construction to the meaning. But
Right,
now putting everything in perspective that you have been saying, then I can see how construction is a part of the process, especially if you're doing academic writing, because you have to be able to construct ideas through critical thinking and analysis.
Right.
And that is the purpose of reading to do academic writing for me.
Right. Yes, you are very correct. I think Rochelle Abrams Stewart says, or obtaining an understanding meaning of words. I think it's deliberately they deliberately not use the word understanding, but constructing, meaning that it is something that is very personal. It's something that is very individual. So the meaning that I construct from reading a novel is not, my individual construction is different from another person's construction, because we're at different levels. We have different backgrounds. We might come from different communities, different families, and all of that actually informs how I interpret information. All right, reading means understanding what ideas or information or feelings the words convey when put in a particular pattern by a writer, and constructing meaning from the words on the page, interpreting arrangement on the page, interpreting with text to connect known with written. So you're shaping the text, all right? The close reading process, preparing to read, actually reading and then responding. And that is partly, especially reading and responding, is partly what is going to be your mid-semester, where you're giving a piece of discourse and now you have to make meaning from it or construct meaning from it in terms of your response. So preparing to read, you identify author and work, make predictions, establish purpose, which is one of the things that you have to determine. In other words, why was this piece of discourse written and what does the writer hope to accomplish? All right, you might have to activate previous knowledge. You might have to raise some amount of questions based on what is stated. Aims, trying to predict in advance aspects of content from clues. So for example, you might look at the title of a piece of discourse and try to determine what the passage is about. Sometimes it's not the same thing. It could be that they're being figurative or metaphorical in terms of the title. Surveying or previewing material before close reading helps prepare the mind for reading and all of that. Pre-reading, determine, like, so you read, for example, book chapter, journal articles. You're looking at things such as the title of the book, the subtitle. You might read the preface. You might look at the index. You might look at the appendices. You might look at the references. So one of the things that I do when I'm going to look, if and when I'm looking at, for example, your sentence outline, when you have actually finished that particular outline, before I even read the paper, I'm going to look at your reference list, and the reference list will tell me if the paper itself is actually academic in nature, because the sources will speak to me. So I'm going to get a sense, okay, this is the direction that the paper is going. And if I see, for example, the sources cited or referenced are primarily from the United States, then I'm going to assume that the paper is based on some particular topic in the United States. If I see the sources are primarily from the Caribbean, I say, okay, this paper is probably speaking something about the Caribbean before I actually read your paper. All right, so those things are very important in terms of consideration. These are just pre-reading stuff, you know, getting into pre-reading and all of that. Yeah, so the actual reading now involves close examination of the material for obtaining and constructing meaning. You might make notes. This is where the whole notion of in-text citation comes into play, because you have to make notes. You have to probably write down the author's name, the title of the book, what the author says. You probably have to paraphrase what the author says in relation to your topic. Give me a sec. Right, so I was saying that you might need to make notes, very important. I remember when I was doing my master's degree, I had a kind of notepad when it comes on to my sources. So I literally have to write down the name of the author, the year, the title, and all of that. And I have it in a book by itself because that is important. And when you get to my level in terms of doing a master's and or a PhD, when you complete a master's thesis, before they actually mark it, they submit it to the library. So the library will go through to look in terms of this, the citation, the referencing, the sources, make sure that you didn't plagiarize, things like that. They actually go through it, and sometimes they'll give it back to you to do corrections before it is actually marked. So it's a very, very serious thing in terms of reading for your quote unquote degree. It's very, very important. All right. There are times when you have to consult a source 2 or 3 times just to understand what the source is saying. And you also have to be very moral or ethical in terms of how you paraphrase, not twisting or deliberately twisting the words of the author, because some persons do that, deliberately twist the words of the author in order to fit their own argument. What usually happens, however, though, is at the master's and PhD level, your paper will be passed to some of the experts, and they probably will look and determine if you are actually twisting the words of the author, all right? Because they themselves, sometimes they are the authors, or they are friends with the authors, or they have already looked at the work in a very intensive way and know the work inside out and actually can speak to the merit of the work, all right? So reflecting and reviewing in terms of reading, how does this chapter or article connect to previously studied material? Does it add to our or qualify previously studied material? In other words, you are supposed to be asking a lot of questions and getting a lot of answers too when you are reading. Reviewing, you make your notes, you make your jottings, and you have to remember not to, when you're making your notes, or what happens with some people is that they read the information so many times that when they're writing their paper, they write it, they include it in their paper without giving credit to the author. And then when it is flagged for plagiarism, say, sir, but this came from me. It actually didn't come from you, but because you have been reading so many different materials on the subject matter, you think you know, not realizing that it is the sources that you consulted that is informing your quote unquote knowledge. All right. As I said, I'm not going to read go through everything. So analyzing texts, very, very critical. So for discourse analysis, as I said before, the first thing you want to comment on is either the main idea and or the purpose. That's very important. So I might say in the piece entitled University of Stone Dog, the writer's main idea is that, and you tell the writer's main idea. The writer's purpose is to da 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 da. And then you say something like this: to achieve purpose, the writer uses 3 organizational strategies or something of the sort. All right. So reading analytically requires that you apply your critical reading skills to break down the whole of the text into the sum of its parts. When you talk about language strategies, and I'm not going to teach you techniques or just strategies. And when you have to comment on main idea, purpose, tone, diction, things like that, try to determine what the writer is attempting to achieve and what writing strategies he or she is using to achieve it. So analysis means understanding how the work has achieved its effect. But critical analysis now involves evaluating a text, exploring how the various components of that text work together and contribute to its overall effectiveness. In other words, each strategy that you comment on, you must link your response or your analysis to its purpose. All right, and we are going to look at some examples. The components for critical analysis of texts. All right, everybody's understanding? Just let me pause to, are you guys understanding?
Just waiting on the examples, sir.
Okay, yeah. When we get to the examples, I guess that's where you can make a better determination. So the rhetorical situation, the subject, the author, the audience, the purpose, the context. So these are other things that you're going to comment on. So you're going to comment on the author in the context of the perspective. So you're not focusing on the individual, but who could have written this? When it talks about the audience, now we did talk about audience, based on this subject matter or based on the subject, to whom is this writer writing? The context now, or what are some of the factors that caused the writer to construct this piece of discourse? All right, and the purpose, as I said before, is twofold: the why and what the writer hopes to accomplish. And then the rhetorical strategies now is the organizing principles in terms of cause and effect, problem and solution, process analysis, process explanation, whole part, exemplification, things like that. Types of evidence that is used, that you can comment on, and the style is whether it's formal, informal, the kinds of words that are used. Is it conversational in tone? So you're going to comment on things like tone and mood and all of that. All right. And we'll get into a discussion about that. So the subject matter, so first two elements of the rhetorical situation, the subject, topic of inquiry, study or discussion. So in the piece entitled da 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 da, all right, the writer focuses on the benefits of genetically modified food in its fight against in the fight against poverty in continental Africa. And then you comment on the author. So the writer, who, background, personal, how does that affect your understanding of the text? So the author, who could have written this? The piece is written by someone who's concerned about the health effects or the negative effects of genetically modified food on the health of persons in continental Africa. So it's not necessarily, when we did, for example, look at reparation, and you said Vibes Cartel, and I said to you, that's not who you're supposed to be focusing on. The author is somebody who's concerned about reparation and the fact that it has not been addressed over centuries. All right. The audience now, you have what is called the primary audience and the secondary audience. It could be a specialist audience, so like a paper about any paper that is very specific to, so I think somebody's writing a paper about site managers, and this the class where somebody's writing, I think, something about how to prevent accidents on a work site or in a manufacturing company or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Right, so it would mean that your audience is very specific, is a specialist audience, because you're speaking specifically probably to engineers, because they are most times the persons who are the site managers. So it could be engineers, civic, so it could be what are called civic engineers, because they're the ones responsible for construction, things like that. If you're writing an academic, a medical paper, it could be that you're speaking to healthcare professionals, or specialist doctors who are the ones dealing with, let us say, hyperglacia. It could be a general educated audience. What you should never write is that you're speaking to the audience is the general public or the public. All right, that's incorrect. If you write that, I'm going to give you 0 and move on. You can't write the public, all right, because the public include the baby that was just born, and I'm sure the piece was not written to the baby that was just born, because the baby that was just born would not understand what is written. All right. There are times when you have what are called primary, secondary audience. So the primary audience might be the students or concerned students. For example, I think when we looked at University for Stone Dog, the primary audience would be, for example, prospective students, students who are coming out of high school considering going to universities. And the secondary audience could probably be their parents who have to pay for their tertiary education. So you think about it in that particular way, and the same way you have to think about it, comment on it in terms of discourse analysis for your mid-semester exam. All right, the purpose I mentioned before, and here are some examples of purpose. These are the kinds of verbs that you use: inform, instruct, clarify, argue, assert, claim. Let me do something let me just do something quickly, because this is something that you will need to digest again. All right, I'm going to send you this lecture right now. because it's based on a mid-semester, so kind of need to go through it. I don't usually send my lectures because students sometimes just lift the exact information from it, which defeats the purpose. Every time I go on Common, I'm seeing Kerry. I don't know why. I shouldn't be seeing her, but nonetheless, where is inbox? Come on. Students, all. Discourse analysis. Lecture. All right, just check to see if you got that lecture.
What did they send it to, sir?
Always your ECC email.
Okay.
Sure, I'm not seeing it.
Not as yet, sir.
Okay, let me just make sure that it was sent. I don't understand this people system because how do you know how can you check for sent? Okay, here is sent. All right. Yeah, it was sent. It was sent to 70 to Davia, Sutherland. I think these are all my students. All right, double check again for me because it was sent. It's an attachment, people, titled Discourse Analysis Lecture.
Still not seeing it, and I also refresh my email.
Not seeing it?
No, probably will take a while to send to reach us.
I'm not seeing it.
All right, it probably will take a while because it's saying that it is saying sent on my end. Saying sent on my end, so I'm not sure what's happening. All right, so it probably will take a while to get to you.
Just double check your outbox to see if it is in limbo there.
Are you seeing it?
No, I'm saying to check your outbox.
Sir, is it this exact lecture that you sent?
Yeah, but it's
Yes, I'm seeing it on Canvas.
okay, thank you. All right, so if one student is seeing it, then all of you should get it eventually. If you're not seeing it now.
So it's on Canvas, I thought it was the email.
I only use Canvas, people. I only use Canvas. That's the medium I have to send information to you. Hold on, this much can't be real. St. Catherine High gave St. Mary 25-0. So can you play a football match and 25 goals are scored? Is that possible? Are you seeing it, guys?
Yes, sir. I'm seeing it now. Yes.
Yes, sir, seeing it.
Okay, all right, good. No, this can't be possible. How can you play football match and get 25? God. Lord. All right,
Sir,
so yes.
Sir, excuse me. I haven't received it as yet, and I refreshed my email many times. Sir.
I'm not
When you
sure.
and it.
In Canvas, not
I sent it via Canvas. Remember,
Okay,
I
sir.
don't add it to Canvas. You know, this is a system, is a school that adds you.
Oh.
So just pop up in the area.
All right, so the context now is the circumstances out of which the piece emerges. All right, so in other words, what factors triggered the construction or the caused the writer to write the piece? I usually just phrase it that way. Many times the context is stated in the actual piece. We looked at already at the various organizational strategies. Sometimes they're called organizing principles. So I'm not going to go through the litany of that. The other thing, what patterns of arrangement are evident, particular to general, general to specific? Well, we did talk about chronology in the sense of sequencing as one organizational strategy, whether the author is developing the information like from A to A, B, C, D kind of way, or 1, 2, 3, or it is a process where the writer is explaining the process from beginning to end. That's a way of looking at it. And it's important now that you are able to answer the question, why does the writer use a chosen method or strategy? That is what is important. That's how you actually get the marks. All right, when you're able to not just identify the strategy, but be able to link it to the writer's purpose. All right, types of evidence: facts, quotation, statistics, case studies, illustration. Everyday examples means typical examples. All right, so everyday examples, typical examples, and of course it says it might affect the credibility of the author or of the piece, not the author, but the piece itself. All right, how does the author show readers what he or she means, and what details are given to show the readers the significance of what the author is trying to say. All right, style, very important. This part I'm going to spend some time on style. All right, so style in terms of writing is very, very important. You must understand style. For example, your expository paper that you're developing must be formal. The register must be formal, must be formal. All right. So in your analysis, there should be a paragraph on style. So one paragraph on organizational strategies, another paragraph on style, introduction, conclusion, and that is your mid-semester paper. All right. So style refers to the overall way or how a writer uses language. So when it talks about denotative or connotative, this is probably something you might need to write down. So denotation means the literal, simple, scientific, technical meaning of a word or concept. So let me just put it in the so denotation. Oh yes. So literal. I forgot one word. Dictionary. Scientific Technical. Did I miss any? I don't think so. Where's my mouse? Or you can say simple. Let's say simple. Of a word or concept. All right, that's denotation. D-E-N-O-T-A-T-I-O-N. You must know this because you have to comment on it for your mid-semester. The opposite of that is what is called connotation. This is the imaginative or figurative meaning of a word or concept. All right, tell me when you're finished writing that.
Sir, meaning should be after technical.
Yeah, meaning, yeah, meaning, yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Finish writing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So when we talk about denotation now, we're talking, so let us say that we are defining an eclipse. And that's a very technical, it's not just the simple way of putting an eclipse is just by saying where the sun passes over the moon. But a more technical definition, the technical persons now with getting to a much lengthier definition. But for the figurative definition now, this is where you are ascribing an imaginative or creative meaning to a word. So if you say, for example, that somebody, them shoes look tough. Tough in this instance means good or looking good or looking the latest trend or reflecting the latest trend. So it is important for you to understand or pay attention to whether the language that is being used in the piece is denotative or connotative and why. So if, for example, the piece of discourse, the purpose of the writer is to educate about the benefits of workplace safety, then the language might be denotative because you have to use that type of language to educate and inform, all right? Then now, the other part of it, and we probably need to mention this about the figurative component of it now, which are like literary devices. So you have the metaphors, the similes, repetition, the irony, the sarcasm, the oxymoron, the synecdoche, and the various ones. The other one now, so diction means choice of words. That's all it means, all right? Diction means choice of words. Diction means choice of words. And you might, in your own paper when I'm marking, you might hear me say, the diction is off, or you need to raise the diction. It needs to be a little bit more sophisticated or things like that. All right. Register now is how language is used in particular contexts. So in this instance, they only tell you there are only two types of registers, formal and informal, but in the broader sense, there are about 5 or 6 of them. But for the purposes of this course, we'll focus on only the formal and informal register. And again, I mentioned that register means how language is used in particular contexts. So if you are speaking, let's just say that you're a guest speaker at a graduation, for the most part, the register will be formal. You might have informal components when you might, use Jamaican vernacular, or you might run a joke or something like that. All right, which is a little bit different. So you have to bear in mind that style is also critical. All right, tell me if you understand style. There's silence. Do we understand style? All right, Deidrean says yes. Anybody else wants to comment? Do we understand style, people? Let me hear some comments. I would prefer verbal comments instead of everybody just suddenly going into the chat. Please talk to me.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Would you say that the style kind of sets the tone of the paper?
It does. It does.
Okay, all right. So you could say they're interrelated.
So tone is also something that you comment on relating to style.
Okay.
Right. And tone is the feeling of the writer, the feeling or the attitude of the writer towards his or her subject matter. So it could be that they're very serious, they're informative, reflective, explanatory, whatever it is. It just depends on the nature of the discourse that you're looking at.
And so the diction then would be important in a case like that, because if you want to be informative, you would be formal and sophisticated, and you also want to be technical because you're coming from an informative perspective.
Not necessarily technical. Technical suggests that the level of language that is being used. Just mute your mic, please. So technical would suggest a kind of very scientific kind of engineering, kind of physics kind of piece, where you're seeing a lot of terms that are very specific to scientists or engineers, civic engineers or chemical engineers. That's kind of the way I would more say it is more elevated or sophisticated. And you'll find if the register is informal, you'll find that the diction tends to be, there's a lot of slangs or colloquialisms that are being used, or basic and or simple terms or words being used.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions or comments relating to style?
Sir, what is the colloquialism?
Colloquialism are terms that are really unique to like a region or a group of people, or so, certain things that makes us, once you hear this statement, you say, oh, that's a Jamaican. All right, hold on, let me see if I can find thank you. All right, so let's look at something else, eh? Define. All right, a perfect example. Do you know the song that says that them girl them when wicked them? Do you know that song? And people like to quote it, like there are times when it,
No, sir.
You're lying, you know the song. The mere fact that you said no, the way you said it suggests otherwise.
No, I want to hear the rest of it. I don't know. It's sorry if it is something new then no.
Is that somebody playing it? I'm sure that is. Shanae? Is that the song, Shanae?
No, sir.
So why am I hearing music in my... Yes, man. What's Roger? Do you know that song? What's name again? Tajay, sorry. You know the song where there's something, there's a line in it that says, them girl, them wicked, them wicked, them. Do you know that song, Tajay, agree? Let me see if I can find the song. It's something that people...
Yes, sir, I know it.
Right, people are always quoting it. That's a kind of colloquial term. In other words, wicked in that context doesn't mean evil or that kind of thing. It just means that probably they're dishonest or deceptive or things like that. Especially in the context of talking about, I'm sure you heard the debate about paternity tests at birth, and some women are objecting to it. Mrs. Riley Lamont, you need to listen to Jamaican dancehall. You'll know what is happening among young people, all right? It's a very nice song, actually. It's a very nice song. And then women know sometimes they start, women know sometimes they too now have their own version of that by saying man wicked too. All right. All right, yeah. So that's an example of colloquialism. And you find a lot of colloquialism coming out of popular culture. All right. Style, continuing style, you have something what is called syntax. Even though they have the term sentence structure, the more sophisticated term that is used is syntax. And it's really how sentences are organized. Let's say structured, how sentences are structured. And that too, in and of itself, will suggest the level of formality. So you find that when the register is formal, the sentences tend to be much longer in nature. In terms of tone, I mentioned it before, the attitude of the writer towards his or her subject matter. Example, playful, enthusiastic, serious, objective, reverent, angry. There are various examples of tone, and we're going to look at some examples of that. So the tone is determined by the diction, the tone is determined by the syntax, suggestive of the audience. So example of formal tone suggests serious, probably well-educated audience. So yeah, sorry. So you have to be able to match these things as you are critically analyzing a piece of discourse. All right. We don't have to do this one. I actually have examples. So your evaluation of source materials. So it says many sources may not be expository instead of argumentative. It doesn't mean that you can't cite them. It's just that when in your paraphrasing of the sources, you have to ensure that the style is not argumentative in nature, because the paper that you're writing is expository. And you know the tone in an argumentative paper is very different from the tone in an exposition. The tone in exposition tends to be very informative, very formal, so those are the kinds of words that you use with tone in expository writing. You find that in argumentative, the tone might be critical, the tone might be expressing anger, concern, that kind of thing. All right, so notwithstanding type of writing, describe and analyze strategies which have aided the writer in achieving his or her purpose. Right, so this is the part that is important for your mid-semester, that what you have to do now is to, well, not necessarily describe the strategies, but really identify the strategies and link each strategy to the writer's purpose. In other words, how does this strategy, if you say, for example, that the writer has used problem and solution as an organizing principle, how does that help the writer to achieve the purpose? It could be that the writer is really uses problem and solution. Well, it could be that the writer just identifies the problem because the solution is already known, or vice versa. All right, so it depends on the piece of writing that you get. The summary of key features to assess and evaluate. the rhetorical situation, the subject, the author, the audience, we mentioned all of that, the organizing principles, the types of evidence. Can anybody remind me, what are some of the types of evidence? Types of evidence.
Examples we can use typical examples.
Yes. All right, thanks for that. Can you mute your mic, please? All right, so evaluating sources, a summary maps onto the item. So these are what I want for you to do for me, with the exception of the crooked or fallacious thinking. No, we don't reach here. So this is in relation to the source, evaluating source, we're not there yet. All right, so I shared something in the WhatsApp group. Did you see the link that I shared in the WhatsApp group?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to actually put it in the I'm going to put it into random breakout rooms. Did I claim host? No, I didn't. And I want for you to identify, at least to answer these questions. Let's do that first. Yeah, just remember. I'm looking for the claim host password. Right, here it is. So I'm going to put you into random breakout rooms, and you're just going to let's just start at the point where you're identifying 3 language strategies, and you're going to explain any one. So identifying 3 language strategies and explain any one. All right, is that clear? My thing is that clear,
Yes, sir.
people? All right, so breakout rooms, right? All right, so remember, this is just for class activity. All right, I've opened the breakout rooms. You're using the same article. You probably can. Let's explain all 3, and I'll just do one from each room, because there are more than enough persons in the room, in each room. So you have to read the article. Many of you would have read that article already, but now we're focusing on the language strategies, 3 language strategies. All right, so I'm giving you 15 minutes, and then we present. So it's 20, 30. So I'm closing the breakout room at 6:35. Yeah, 6:35. All right, room 1, Felicia, Samantha, Sasha, Gay, Shannon. Can you tell me at least one organizational strategy that you identified? Room 1, hello.
Contrast.
All right, can you give us a specific example of contrast that is in the piece? Guys, talk to me, people. You have to talk.
By contrast, a college specializes in undergraduate education. One of the institutions registered by the council is a university college.
All right, so in your explanation, hold on, we can all read, so you're not supposed to be reading from the
Oh,
passage.
you said the specific example from the passage.
Right, so in other words, the writer shows the difference between, what is the difference the writer is pointing out?
The difference between college and university.
And how does this contrast help the writer to achieve his or her purpose? I am listening, people. Why we not there are 1, 2, 3, 4 people in the group in room 1 and nobody's saying anything?
It helped the writer to achieve her purpose by bringing awareness to the fact that a lot of institutions are claiming university title, but they are not university. They are mostly higher education institutions.
All right, but higher education institutions are universities though. But you started off, I think it's just the latter part of your response. So in other words, some of them are claiming the name of university, but in fact, they are not offering the substance or the content of university. So you're correct in the sense that the writer is pointing out that contrast, all right? Room 2, Donnet, Abigail, Norman, can you identify a different organizational strategy and comment on it? Hello? Room 2, Donnet, Abigail, Norman. Anybody commenting? Okay, I hope these persons don't ask me any questions because I'm making note. Room 3, Cloven, Leroy, Marisha. Can you tell me one organizational strategy and explain? Room 3.
All right, sir.
Mm-hmm.
One organizational strategy identified in the article is anecdote. This is evident in stanza 5.
Mm-hmm.
And
in
this,
paragraph 5, not stanza.
Paragraph 5.
Mm-hmm.
It illustrates to the readers the negative connotation associated with the word mongrel.
Mm-hmm. And link that now to the writer's purpose.
Group members? Well, it is to I guess I can use the word illustrate the quality of education being offered by these higher educational institutions, I guess.
I was trying to add as well, sir. I'm sorry, I couldn't come off mute. All right. So the writer, it was the writer used anecdote to achieve the purpose of the different types of universities that are out there. So basically, there are different types of dogs and different breeds of dogs classified as mongrel. So the writer used mongrel to bring across the purpose that there are different varieties and types of universities.
But you need to say a little bit more though. And what is the writer implying about the different types or quote unquote breeds of universities?
She was implying that they only just bear the name or the title of university, but they're not giving what university would how would I say this now?
Excuse me, sir.
They're
Is
not
this
operating like a university, sir?
Okay, all right. Somebody was about to say something?
I was asking if this is group 7 presenting because I get kicked off just now.
No, I'm not at group 7. No, I'm at room 4.
This is your group, Rashida.
Room 4, Brittany, Deidrean, Kanaya. Any comment?
Yes, sir. Language or organizational strategies that we found. We use problems and solution.
Problem and solution.
Right. So the problem identified is that there's too much university and they're struggling. Right. So the solution that the author stated was that why is it the case that instead of investing to pool the resources for them to survive, why not just let them go and invest in basic schools?
All right, so some parts of it are okay, but the part about the resources and universities is a little bit off, and I don't want to comment yet until all the other groups have commented, but nice addition to the discussion. Room 5, KD and Kimani Shanika, any comments?
So one of the language strategies that we found were our figurative definition. So I will put this at paragraph 4 when it was stating so we have University of Stone Dogs. It's basically not necessarily calling the school or anyone that attends the school dogs, but to say that there's a large amount of them.
So a large quantity of them.
Yes, sir.
All right, so which rhetorical device is that? So we know it's connotation being used and it comes under the whole notion of style. So which rhetorical or which figure of speech is the writer using when she says University of Stone Dog?
Metaphor.
Right, it's metaphorical, right? Yes. And you correctly explained that the whole notion of University of Stone Dog mean that, you know, dogs are all over.
Yeah.
And when she says of all breeds and varieties, meaning that you have some that are pedigree and some that are not. So the metaphor plays out the fact that you have bona fide prestigious universities such as UWI versus other institutions. Which one is not
meet the standard of?
Did she give any example of a higher education institution that does not meet the standard of a university?
Sir, I think.
Hold on, this is for room 5. If you're in room 5, then it should be answered. Wait until I reach you. Kimani, go ahead.
I'm not sure if she did. I just remember her.
If I ask a question, she did. The mere fact that I asked you, it means that she did.
So I think it was Idle.
Yes, she mentioned Idle group of schools, right? What was said about Idle?
I think they weren't. What they said again, sir? I think they were the ones gathering resources or something like that.
Look back at the article.
All right.
All right, but you're in room 5?
Yes, sir, Shanika.
Right. Yes, look at the article and talk to me.
I think they said sir, that they keep weak institutions. They were referring to it on life support.
Right, right. No, but what
Yes.
was said about, no, but I'm asking about idle in particular. What was said about idle? All right, let's just say, because I want to get to the other rooms. Room 6, any?
All right.
Yes, room 6, Anika, Cheryl, Sherian, anything from you for room 6? Any language strategy? Or if you want to comment on style, anything from you guys?
So we were looking at when the writer was defining the word mongrel, sir. So we were looking at when the writer was defining the word mongrel dogs. So
Yes, I'm listening.
sir, so in the article, sir, well, he was saying
The writer.
where the writer stated that he didn't really mean dog, sir, but even in the very first definition of the Oxford English,
Don't read from the
dog is
article. I
not.
can read. I can read. I want you to give me analysis. You're not giving me analysis. You're just regurgitating what is on the paper. What type of definition does the writer use? There are 3 persons in the group. Why nobody's talking?
The writer used a simple definition for the word mongrel, where it was referenced in the Oxford Dictionary. So the definition was given to provide context to the conversation or the statement that was made by the then Prime Minister. And then it was to provide a deeper look at Motti wanting to defend what Mr. Siaga had said, to say, you know, he was not really meaning to describe the people as dogs, but the very definition of the word, which the writer said meant a dog of no distinct breed or something like that. So the writer made sure to provide us with that definition so that we could understand the context in which the word was used in the piece.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. That's a better explanation. All right, room 7, Marsha, Rasidia, Rohanna, Rochelle.
We did that. We did ours already, sir.
When?
We went second when you called our names.
Sir, that was what got me confused. That's why I was asking if this is group 7 presenting.
All right, so room 2, anything from room 2, done it, Abigail, Norman. I noticed that nobody from the room even answered me. Anything from room 2? Let me know if is it that you don't understand or something, you know, but say something because I know, yes.
I was a bit late. I reached here after 6. After 6, I joined the class. I leave work. I just reached home after 6. So like I was asking the group members what was definitely going on. Someone said they was fully attended to the class and so forth. So I don't really understand definitely what's taking place.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So remember, guys, when you're in the class, you must pay attention. This is my challenge with students, you know. You love to complain about the institution is not doing this and the institution, and when you're in the class, some of you are not paying attention. All right, I will tell you, I am not an easy marker. You will learn that the hard way. You must pay attention. You must pay attention when you're in the class. If you don't understand, raise your hand, ask questions. I like the fact that some students, even if they're not sure, them say, what, them a try a thing. At least you're saying something, and that is how you learn. But it cannot be in the class. You sit as stones and scribes, and you watch me like television. So all you do, or you listen to me like the radio. You just listen to my voice, and you have no contribution. Remember, the burden is on you, not on me. The burden is on you. I've already have a degree and a master's. It's now your turn. And in order for you to properly gain from the process, you need to participate. Some persons are always participating. They're willing to participate, even if they're not sure. Then there are other persons, they just don't talk. And you're doing yourself a disservice when you don't talk in the class. All right. What I want to happen is for the groups, these groups now, just to continue the discussion outside of class, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this example to show you how to construct the entire essay, what is called a discourse analysis essay before you go into the mid-semester. So I would want for you to go back now and look at like the writer's main idea, the writer's purpose, look at these 3 organizational strategies, comment a little bit on 2 or 3 areas relating to style, more 3 or 4 areas relating to style, and come with at least something, and we have a discussion, and then I'll show you how to put it together, the introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Fair enough?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it a case we're going to work within our original groups or the breakout room that you just put us in?
Let's work in your original groups. Work in your original groups. I think the chemistry is already there. So work in your original groups. And then, so when we come back, in other words, the groups that are working on the outlines, that's, you're going to work with those groups and do the analysis, all right?
So is the same article we're going to use?
Same article, yes. We're going to use the
you
same
say
article.
One, the main idea, the purpose, 3 strategies?
Language strategies and 3 areas on style.
3 areas on style, okay.
Right. So just go back to the lecture. I'm going to ensure that I upload the recording so that you guys can revise the recording. And of course, I don't expect your answers to be perfect. What I want is an attempt, and then I can guide you and probe. I'm going to ask a lot of questions just to get a sense of why you made certain decisions and, in terms of your explanation. And that is how you're going to actually benefit from the process. All right?
Sir, can you please repeat what you said?
Yes, please.
Repeat. What should I repeat?
You said we're to get 3 language strategy and
3 areas on the style.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. So you determine the areas under the style that you want to comment on. If you want to comment on tone or register or mood or whatever it is that you want to comment on the style. And you can actually Google examples of discourse analysis. There are several examples of discourse analysis.
Sir, I came in late, so as it relates to the areas and the style, could you just put them back on the screen, please? When I came in the class, you were
It's
at
in your. It's just check your
It's in the
email.
PowerPoint.
It's in.
All right
Yes.
then. Thank you.
It's on Canvas. So
no problem.
The lecture is on Canvas, and I'm going to post the recording sometime tonight because the class ends early at 7. So by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I would have uploaded the recording and shared the link in the WhatsApp group. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right. Any other questions, queries before we go? Should I take that as a no?
Sir?
Yes?
You said language strategies, language understyle, and what else?
So language strategies, the main idea, the purpose, writer's main idea, writer's purpose, and 3 areas on the style.
Sir, I have a question to ask. Earlier sometime this month you sent a notation to the group about a work that we have on Canvas about literacy.
I never work on Canvas. I never sent anything about anything on Canvas.
Sir, the literacy APA.
Yes, but remember that is an institution that didn't come from me per se, it came from the institution. I just shared it in the group. That is not Mr. Clark's doing it. That's the institution itself asking you to complete that. And I said to everybody that if you complete it, I will give you 5 marks. At least everybody in the course has to complete it. It's 5 marks of my coursework grade, of your final overall grade.
Okay, sir.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I wasn't at class the last time. Organizational strategy and language strategy is the same thing, right?
Please watch the recording if you're not at class. Did you watch the recording?
Shall I listen half of it?
Right, you have to watch the recording. You
I
have
want
to
to
watch the
read
recording.
the side that you sent to the WhatsApp group.
Yes, so you must watch the recording. So the organizational strategies is the same thing as the language strategies, is the same thing as organizing principles. And I said that in the recording as well.
Sir, when is mid-semester?
I will tell you next class.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, any other questions? Remember to continue to work on your sentence outline as well when you get time to, because as I said, you notice I've kind of paused it. It's not that it's not important. So I'm bringing you up to speed now in terms of what is going to happen when we finish this part. You're going to do a discourse analysis. You're going to choose one of your sources and do a discourse analysis. So we're not there yet. I'm teaching you this part first for you to understand how to do discourse analysis, and then we go back to the paper. So if you have time, continue to work on your paper. Margaret might come next week, Tuesday and Thursday, because she never got a chance to come this week to do, and then she's going to comment on your paper as well. And then I'm going to also ask her to do some outside class consultation. She loves teaching, so she's going to find the time to, so you can show her your paper.
I noticed it, sir.
Yeah, she's very,
I watched the recording with her.
Yeah, very, very passionate, very, very, very passionate. And that's why I deliberately asked her to come. So she'll give you a lot of feedback and all that. And to me, she's far more savvy than I am, because she has been doing it far more, longer than I am. I think over 20 years she has been doing it, doing a lot of teaching. And I worked with her and I learned a few stuff from her. All right. Any other questions?
Is she still teaching, sir, or she retired?
She's retired. That's why she has time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's retired. But she loves it so much. She loves it, loves it, loves it. When I leave Excel, I might just ask them to let her come and give her like a 2-year contract and let her continue, because she can bring a difference in terms of academic writing. All right, any other questions, comments, queries? All right, guys, enjoy the rest of the night. Enjoy your weekend.
Sir.
Stay safe until I see you next week, Tuesday.
Same to you, sir.
Somebody said, sir, go ahead.
So what they say we should complete, everyone should complete.
I'm not understanding the question.
So somebody asked me something a while ago about something where you said the institution sent, but everyone should complete.
Can you just tell them to check their student email? It's in their student email. Or anything I say to you relating to the institution, it was sent to you from the institution. So you just need to check your email about the APA literacy that you need to complete to get the badge and to get the 5 marks in my course. All right. But check your emails, people. And you should be in another class, and it's 2 minutes after 7. I'm sure you have another class. So I'll see you guys next week. All right.
Okay, sir. Good night.
Okay, sir. Take care.
All right. Yeah, man. Night.